Okay. So this open meeting of the Northborough Family Youth Service Commission is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on July 16th, 2022. All members of the Northborough Youth and Family Service Commission are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The act allows Northborough Youth and Family Service Commission to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded, so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. And now I confirm who's here. So members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Erica Zeiger.
Hi, I'm here. Sorry.
Sandy Scott.
I'm here.
Joan Clementi.
Here.
And I'm Sherry Clark. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Doreen Jenna.
Here.
June David Force.
Here.
All right. I think that's all my technical
Nice job.
responsibility.
Nice job.
All right. Does somebody want to call the meeting to order?
I will.
I'll second.
I'm also going to ask before we go any further, Jen could not be here tonight. She's our secretary. Is there anybody willing to take notes tonight?
I'm taking notes, but I was writing down who was present and I missed who called the meeting to order and who seconded it.
Joan called it. Sandy seconded.
Okay, thank you very much.
And thank you for taking notes, Doreen.
Not a
Thank you.
problem.
All right. The next agenda item is the date of our next meeting, which I was hoping Gilly might be here. That is actually my daughter's birthday.
Oh,
So I'm not available. And I was just wondering if Gilly might be able to lead that one where she is the
Okay.
co-chair.
yeah, we can ask her.
Okay. All right. The review of the minutes, Joan, I know you had a couple of changes.
Yeah, the first part in number 2, I just think it was a misprint. The date of the meeting needs to be changed from March to February in the minutes. And then on number 7 and the 7th bullet, what needed to be added was for a project supporting a mental health need/issue. I also sent that to everyone.
You sent it to us, Joan? Okay.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did before the meeting.
Okay.
All right. All those, sorry. go ahead.
I also had just one thing on my name. It's actually, my last name is Zeiger, Zeiger.
All those in favor of those changes? I think we can.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so it's unanimous. All right, June, I think that brings us to you.
Okay. So I have some items listed here, but I wanted to also mention a few other items that are important for people to know. Excuse me. Kristen Wickstick couldn't make it tonight, but she gave me, I've been getting a lot of questions about the process for hiring the new next town manager. And she sent me an update. She couldn't be here, but she said that at last Monday's meeting, Mitch said they were going to hire a consultant to narrow down a pool of candidates, and there'll be a group of people on the search committee, and that there may also be some opportunity for community input. So I wanted to give people that update.
That's good to hear. Did you request to be on the search committee, June?
This is the first time I've heard about the process. If I can, I will do that.
I think that might be good.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to focus on this this meeting was the coalitions and the committees that the department is involved in. You don't realize how much until you look at the big picture, how many committees and coalitions that we're very involved in, and that are it's not just like one time a month meeting. There's a lot of work involved. So I'm going to focus on 3 of them tonight. And one of them, since 2012, the department has been involved in initiatives to help prevent and reduce youth substance abuse in town. And recently what's happened is, so since that time we've been involved, and what happened is at one point, Northborough and Southborough formed a subcommittee of the large coalition to have their own substance abuse prevention coalition. So the funds ran out for those initiatives, but we kept meeting. So what we've decided to do is the town of Northborough, through my department and the Youth and Family Services Department in Southborough, each put up $7,500 toward hiring a consultant to help with moving our initiative along and do some strategic planning and also look at other funding sources. So we've been working with Amanda Decker, the consultant, for probably 8 or 9 months now, and she's great. We meet, there's actually 3 meetings. There's the steering committee meeting. So we changed our name. We rebranded it to Encompass instead of Northborough Southborough Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition. So this is easier to identify. So we're comprised of people from both the town of Northborough and Southborough. We have people from the schools, from the community organizations, from clergy, and other town departments, the health department. So what we're doing is, as part of the strategic plan, on March 8th, we're going to launch we're going to actually try to recruit new members. So we're going to have like an orientation to Encompass and invite members from different sectors like youth and parents and clergy and other town entities. So that's going to be happening the beginning of March. The other thing that we're doing with Encompass is Amanda Decker is helping us to identify other funding sources to support this initiative. Now, many other towns get these federal grants that actually give them like $650,000 over so many years to get a coordinator to help with this initiative. We have to do some preparatory steps before we apply, but I think we might be able to apply within a year. So that'll be huge. Let me see. Are there any questions so far about Encompass? So the other thing we're very involved in.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Could I just ask?
Yes.
How are you going to deliver the services to the town?
You mean this coalition?
Yeah, what are you gonna do? Like, how is it going to help the people who have
Yeah.
children that are abusers, or, you know, the abusers themselves?
Right. So a lot of it is education and community workshops. And what we'll do is we'll also develop a resource guide to refer people who are having issues with this to. And we have a lot of that in place already, but that's going to be
Yeah.
a big piece of it. But really reaching out to the whole community to educate and create awareness about this.
How do you think you will reach out?
Well, through these like educational workshops. I know in the past what we've done in the prior coalition was we did programs like during parent teacher conferences. We would do the program where it's called Hidden in Plain Sight. And it's a mother, yeah, it's a mother and a son who created this program, and we actually set up a complete bedroom of a student.
Yeah.
And all these hidden objects that kids can hide things in, like they could have a toothpaste tube in their room, and it can actually unscrew on the bottom and they can hide drugs in it. There's all kinds of paraphernalia out there. So that was very powerful. We also, in the past, we haven't identified the specific programs, but these are the type of programs we've done that
Okay.
we'll probably do.
Thank
more.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the health and wellness since I've been here, I've been on the school's health and wellness committee. And what it is it would meet, it's mandated by the state for all schools to have it. We would meet every couple months. And what we would do is talk about the pressing needs in the community. I know many, many years ago, it was a time when there was a lot of drugs brought into schools. And so what Westboro did was they hired these dogs that could go in and they could do these random searches. And that was a huge issue back then. I'm not sure where it's at right now, but those are the kind of things that we would focus on. And so what's happened is during COVID, it didn't really continue. And so we started up again, and there's subcommittees on it. And one of the subcommittees I'm on is the Metro West Health Foundation Adolescent Survey is going to happen again this coming fall. And I think in the ARPA application, I wrote about 2 pages about the findings from the 2021 survey. And so they're going to do it again in the fall. And so I'm on and in the past, it was never really officially, the results were not rolled out to the community. And so that's going to change, which is really good. And I'm on the committee we are planning on how we're going to be able to roll that out into who and when. And so we meet quite often, and that's going to be, it's not positive if these results are, not all the results actually either are negative. There's a lot of positives, but it's good that the public is going to be made more aware of what's going on. And then we also have on that committee, the general coalition, the general wellness committee will meet. So those meetings are more often. The general coalition will meet every couple of months, and we'll identify. This is the first year we've been up and running again. So yeah, it's helpful to be part of that. The other thing that I do that I may have mentioned in meetings throughout the years, which is as important to me as you are all to me in terms of supporting the department, there are counterparts like Family and Youth Services, and I included it in the ARPA report, the other towns like Hopkinton, Southborough, Westborough. And we get together every, what used to be quarterly, but now it's just about monthly. And we all get together and talk about common themes, trends, new programs. And there's only 57 of us in the state of Massachusetts out of 351 towns. So it's really, really helpful to be with other people who do such a unique job as we do. So that's been very, very positive. What we did this last year, which we talked about as a group for a couple of years, is we held a meeting where we invited admin assistants, counselors to this meeting, because it was always just the directors, so that they could meet their counterparts in other towns. And I wasn't able to make it, but it was very well received. So big source of support for myself and the department. So the other thing I wanted to talk about that that is going to be in my annual report this year, in the department's annual report, I wrote about the uniqueness of having a department such as ours in town. And I talked about all the benefits of having that. And basically, it's hard to match a town department like ours it's hard for any other organization to match it, because we are in town. Residents know we're here. Other town departments know we're here. We have a pulse on what's happening in town. And so that is going to be a big theme in my annual report, which should be done soon. Having said that, there's things that these departments do that I've been in the field for over 30 years, and I've never seen these specific things being done for residents. And I'm just in awe of what these departments can do. And, there's a lot we can't talk about because of the confidentiality, but we had a parent in town lose a child. And this person, when I say a child, it was a young adult, but still it was her child. And we've worked with her on and off for years. And she had no one to go with her to pick up the ashes of her child. So I said, of course I'll go with you. So I met her over. Of course, Hayes is wonderful. They're doing everything they can to help out. And to me, it was like an automatic, yes, of course I'll do that. So I went with her. We brought the remains of her child home with her. I sat with her in her house. And this meant so much to her. I can't tell you how. I can't imagine any other agency doing this, and maybe they do, but it just was so meaningful. I can't tell you how much this meant to this mom. And not because it was me doing it, we had the rapport, but the fact that an organization, and believe me, she has gotten so much support from all of the organizations out there. She is so thankful for all that this town offers her. So it was very humbling. I'm glad I could be there to help her. I did fine through it. I think when I got home, I went right to bed because I was just exhausted from, seeing her go through that, but also how much she appreciated it. So I can't say enough about these departments. It's just, we're able to do some great work. So I'm trying to think if, oh, I have a brief overview about the Collins Center review of the department. Have I talked about this much in these meetings? I don't know how much we've talked about it. It just started happening in January, so,
Yeah, I don't think you talked too much about it, Jim.
okay. So I was approached by the assistant town manager from John to get this Collins Center to come in and do an assessment of the department or a review of the department. And how it was presented was to look at the staffing, given that the Youth Commission is applying for funding from ARPA for staffing, that this would be a way to sort of narrow it down to just what staffing level we would need. So I wasn't in the initial meeting, but I did meet with the consultant. Her first name's Mary, and she, we talked about the department and what we do. I gave her a list of people to contact that we work closely with, and she also was going to call board members of the Youth Commission. So I know a couple of people have said they heard from her, and she just recently reached out to me and asked if her and I could sit down and talk about where she's at now. Yeah, so I don't know if people want to share what their conversation was like with her, or.
I had a conversation with her. I just basically an overview of my thoughts on the department and what my needs were. And for me, I reiterated a lot of the things that I've heard from town members and the ARPA meetings that were held in town and things like that. And she told me a little bit about what her place was in all of this and what she had done in other towns and things like that. So that's kind of the overview of what we went over.
Yeah, I just gave her a brief, a little bit about me and about why I was involved with Youth Commission and what I perceive as what we're doing, what the Youth Commission does and what Family and Youth Service does is different than what the school might offer or complements some of the other services in town. It was a fairly brief conversation. But, I certainly gave her my 2 cents on why I think this is important and the staffing is important and that the needs are really there. And, she just listened. It was not a long conversation though.
Okay.
I didn't have an opportunity to speak with her.
Anything else with that?
June, have you been given any type of update on when to expect kind of the results of what she's doing and kind of what her feedback is going to be?
No, I was a little surprised that I haven't been more involved. I did meet with her initially, and then there was going to be another meeting with the town manager, assistant town manager, and her, and I asked to be part of that. I haven't heard anything. I don't know if that's happened or not, but she did reach out to me and said she'll give me an update. I gave her some times for next week. Okay. So we'll see what happens. I'll keep you posted.
Okay. June, while we're on you, are there any other updates for the department for the past month? Like, have we had any new cases or any new things that have kind of come to light over the couple of months? I know we haven't really been able to focus on stuff like that because we were doing some of the ARPA stuff, so.
Yeah, we're continuing to get people come in who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. It's a very, excuse me, it's not a simple solution. I've said this before in terms of getting people the resources they need, even when they're a priority. There's one woman we are continuing to work with who had to leave her apartment because it was about to be condemned. And we're getting other people coming in who want to, they even have Section 8 housing vouchers, which you can take that voucher and go anywhere in the state. And if someone accepts it and get a living situation, but even those are backed up. We're finding with the fuel assistance program, Doreen was telling me today that, well, first of all, these people at Southern Middlesex Opportunity Council, they do an unbelievable job with thousands of applications for fuel assistance. So they set up satellite sites with towns like Northborough, and they have been swamped. They more than usual. They can't hire staff. They're having a hard time hiring staff. And typically someone will apply 1 year and then they don't have to reapply fully for like 3 years. So a lot of times they just roll the information over. And Doreen said people that have done that first thing this year, in the fall, still haven't heard back. So it's really a problem because some people too, there's emergency ones Doreen can submit and those will get taken care of earlier. But I don't know if you want to say anything more about that, Doreen.
The people at SMOC have generally been very responsive. And I've had 2 clients who have gotten in touch with me. The woman that June was talking about, she applied November 10th. And it should have just been I would think, a relatively easy yes or no, and probably a yes, that she would be approved. And she hasn't heard anything. And, I've tried to call them and nobody's gotten back with me. And then I emailed the director and she didn't get back with me. She always got back with me. So I just think that they are extremely overwhelmed right now, and they're just not able to, answer people's questions. I think the last time I had heard, they didn't have somebody who was there to answer the phones. So they were taking turns, the people who were processing the applications, they were taking turns answering the phone calls on top of doing their own job. But the other thing that I did want to mention is kind of getting back to Mary. So Mary had requested a lot of information from our department, and while I was, and she wanted it to go back to 2016. So I did a lot of digging and pulling up of referral information that other people who had worked at the department before I was there, what they had put down as referrals. So that was like past interns and like IACO and, a couple of the other ladies who had previously held my job. And I didn't look into it deeply, but one of the things that really struck me was that before COVID, there was a lot of counseling that was going on, and Joan would know, and Sandy, perhaps you as well. And a lot of the referrals that came about for the department were referrals that were made on the behalf of these people who were there for counseling. After COVID, what I noticed is, because now we're not doing counseling anymore, all of these referrals the vast majority are new clients. And last year, at the end of the year, when I finished up my referral list, I had made over 400 referrals. Now, that doesn't mean 400 people, but there were over 400 referrals. And like I said, I would say that at least half were new people.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's good in that the word is getting out there that, that this service is available to the residents of Northborough. But I think it also shows the increase in need in the
Mhm.
community.
And why aren't we doing any counseling anymore?
Well, one thing I want to say is about that, I was going to add, that was a good summary, Doreen. That was, having gone through that exercise, there were some themes that came out that in the future we'll be able to look at that, take a step back and look at it and identify those. With counseling, most of the calls that come in, the majority, we're able to refer to interface. And there are very few that we would provide counseling to because of our contract with interface. And those are situations where it's a crisis situation. They can't wait for counselors. They can't wait for referrals from interface because it may be a couple weeks. Typically, interface is really quick at getting referrals out to families, but there's been some situations such as that. The other thing that's been going on is I get a lot of, throughout the year, I call them clinical consultation or parent consultation. So it's not every week meeting with someone, but it's over a short period of time helping someone get through a situation. So for instance, we had a mom come in who we've worked with years ago, and she came in and she had brought her little girl to us for counseling. And 5 years ago, the dad had left, just disappeared. And now he wants to come back into the picture. And she doesn't know about, his living situation and where he's at in terms of stability. So we talked about ways she could get some assistance, legal assistance, or looking into, I know sometimes depending on the situation, people can hire people to do supervised visits. So she was really very anxious about this happening. So I met with her a couple times. I got a call from the school just this week, and it was a guidance counselor who was very worried about this girl, and it was a tough situation because parents were divorced, and sometimes in terms of legal guardian, one or both can just go to a medical doctor and get treatment, can get therapy, but sometimes they both have to give permission. And so this young lady was new to the guidance counselor, and so she was trying to sort that all out because there's also a stepdad involved who's supportive. But you could tell it was really, really difficult for the counselor because there wasn't an easy solution. So we brainstormed a couple different options. So those are the kind of things, I get quite a few of those during the year.
So you are still doing counseling?
Not weekly. I have a couple cases I do weekly, but for the most part, we refer them to interface.
This really changes the whole charter because there was a lot of counseling done with family and youth services. I thought interface or face was just an add-on to take the overflow. Are you saying it's a replacement?
I don't know if what I'm saying is that we have a contract with them, and and they're the first place we refer people to.
Are they still,
What's that?
are they still, you know, for a while, they were months behind where you
Yeah.
couldn't get anyone in there.
Mhm, mhm.
Is that still the situation?
That's gotten better. Yeah.
Okay.
What Sandy's talking about is during this crisis with COVID and the need for counseling, they got so many referrals that they had to stop taking referrals for the month of February. Yes, it was a year ago.
Yeah.
And they had to hire a lot more staff to keep up with the demand. So, and back then it was about 40 days people had to wait
Yeah.
versus 14 days.
Is it back to 14?
I'm not sure the exact, I know it's not as bad as it was. I don't know the exact wait time.
Do you feel that people that you refer there are getting the help they need in the timely fashion?
You know, what I can say is if there is a glitch in the system, like if even before all this crisis, if someone would call and they hadn't heard back, people call me and I call, the clinical director there is excellent. And I call her and she gets right back to me. She checks out the situation. You know, the parent allows me to give their name to her and she checks it out and she gets an answer right away.
So they are responding in a timely fashion.
Well, can I interject for a second? I know that whenever somebody calls and I give them the information for interface, and I explain, how interface works. And I always say to them, when they call interface, ask them how long they can expect before they'll hear back. And I also tell them that if they don't hear back in what they feel is in a reasonable time, to call me back and let me know, and then I will talk to June and we'll see what we can do. And I have not had anyone call back. Now, whether or not they've followed through and even called interface, that I don't know, the specific people, but I haven't had anyone call back and say, hey, listen, can you help me out? I've been waiting for, 6 weeks and I haven't heard anything yet. But I do try to put it on them and say, listen, ask them when you call, how long can I expect to be, waiting? And like I said, and I haven't heard anyone, no one's called me back yet.
So if I can interrupt for 1 second, just so I kind of have an idea of it. It sounds as if when someone calls your office, the two of you will do what we would call like a triage. So if someone is, whether they are, suicidal or, God forbid, there was just a sexual assault, then clearly that would be another action, where interface is more of the, I need counseling because of, my child has anxiety. I feel that this is going on. So it sounds to me, if I'm understanding it correctly, that there is an initial triage when someone calls the office if they are in what I would consider extreme distress.
Yes, because, that's how I handle it. If somebody calls and I can tell that they really, it's just a very difficult situation for them at the moment, then I just pass that along to June. If it's just and I'm not going to say typical, but if it's somebody who's calling up, and actually lately I've been getting a few calls of parents whose pediatricians have referred them to us. And then it's like I just tell them how interface works, the contact information, and I just go through my whole spiel with them. But yes, you're correct.
Thank you.
I wouldn't say it's an official evaluation, though.
No.
You know what I mean? We're on the phone with them and I will definitely get them to the place they need to go. But yeah, there are other departments that they see people initially. They have interface, but they see people initially and then will refer them to a whole level of options. Yeah.
So this is a complete change.
Mhm.
I really thought that interface, you were going to still continue counseling and interface and whomever you hired. And interface was the, like I said, the overflow. So I guess it has changed course or changed charter, actually.
Can we,
Am I right to assume that or no?
I'm not sure how to answer that. When you say change charter, this is a big difference in the
Yeah.
department. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, what I want to say about that is, once we're able to even hire the part-time clinician that's been vacant, what I'd like to see us do is do more groups. Like, Sherry's brought up the idea of doing support group for moms, being able to provide childcare. We can reach a lot of people still through groups.
Yes, yes.
You know what I mean, Joan? So yeah, it's a big change.
It is.
Yep.
can I go back just for a second to the gas, the smoke and all of that? Because I'm just curious. I know when the fall started and the oil prices changed at the same time electric prices changed, Northborough moms blew up with everybody going, what on earth just happened to my bill? So it would lead me to believe that there are more people calling
Yeah.
Yes.
electric and oil.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
what happens with the fuel assistance is that SMOC, the payment only it generally goes towards their heating source. So if they don't have electric heat, then the money goes towards whether it's their gas bill or their oil bill. In the past, it's my understanding that at the end of the season, if there's money left over, they will apply it towards their electric bill. Now, that being said, National Grid, if you do get approved for fuel assistance, you can also, through National Grid, you can also apply for a discounted rate. But if you don't have fuel assistance, that option is not available to you. So I've gotten definitely more calls this year for people who are looking for help with their electric bills. And there really aren't a lot of options out there.
So all these people on wait for SMOC
Yeah.
are now also on wait for electric assistance, because if they don't have that certification for SMOC, then they're not getting electric assistance.
Yep.
So do we have any emergency funding in town? Like, I know you said you can do like an emergency thing, but do we as a town have anything in place to help people who are at risk of getting shut off from services?
Not that I'm aware of.
Well, we use Helping Hands. We do access Helping Hands, the emergency fund, and they will help pay up to like $500 in a bill.
That's literally a month of oil right now. That's
Right. I mean,
that's super awesome of Helping Hands, but I'm just thinking of it realistically of where people are at. That is a month of oil right now.
Yes, it's a real crisis. Absolutely.
I mean, and I've had people call up and they owe National Grid thousands of dollars, and so no, the town does not have an emergency utility fund that helps people if they are really in a crunch.
Yeah, you're right, Sherry. We're very fortunate to have Helping Hands do that, and they're very generous. But they only have X amount of funds. But I remember back when the fuel assistance was in crisis many years ago, and Rotary developed this huge fund to help families. And there was a committee where we could present families to, and it was very significant. But I think you're right. It needs to be a town-wide.
Well, because I just think of it, and if you're somebody who is reaching out because maybe you've never reached out for help before, but now this winter is just crushing you, and somebody says we can help you for a month, Helping Hands has this, that means next month you're having to swallow your pride and do it all over again, right? So but an ongoing, like once they've received Because
Well,
if
and the thing-
you're saying people have applied for SMOC in September and still haven't been approved, right? Doreen?
Well, they can start approving, but what happens is the fuel assistance year starts like November 1st and typically goes through April, say 30th. And so if you paid your oil provider on October 31st, that money that you get from SMOC will not go towards that money that you paid on October 31st. So it has to be bills that you have accrued during that fuel season. Now, getting back to Helping Hands, the problem with Helping Hands is once you ask for help from them, you can't ask again. It's a once and done situation.
So what is happening? Okay, so I'm curious then, what is happening with these families who say they haven't been approved for SMOC in November, so Helping Hands helps them in November. What is happening in December?
Well, what's been happening with some of them, so Salvation Army does have what they call a good neighbor energy fund. So I refer them over to Salvation Army. Catholic Charities also has a fund that they, will give, I guess they give people money for their utilities. The other thing is if somebody gets a shut-off notice, then they can apply for the federal program called RAFT, but they have to have that shut-off notice. It can't be that they're just way behind. They have to have a shut-off notice. So those are really the only options that we have.
And so
Joe,
to use Erica's great word, because triage, I love that, Erica. So basically what that means is for a family that you're working with, you're going to have to triage them at least a couple of times.
Yes,
you're helping them with SMOC, you get them going with Helping Hands, but then the next month you're like, okay, now we need to go through this different organization. So it's not like we've washed our hands, here you go, you're all set.
Oh,
It's like a
no.
consistent, like, we need
No.
to keep following up and helping this family so that they continue to have heat and electricity.
But what I'll say, Doreen, when I say she leaves no stone unturned for resources, she doesn't stop. She finds every possible resource. The bottom line, though, is this is a huge problem that can't just be solved with this pocket of money and that pocket of money. It's really a crisis. And Helping Hands, I want to say that, they get a lot of donations, and that's how and they've been around for so long. They have an excellent reputation. The only reason they say that they'll help people once is because there's such a great need that they have to come up with some parameters around it. But yeah, it's a huge, huge problem.
Now, I don't know exactly how this works. And in June, I hadn't said anything to you about it because I just found out about it later on today. My father lives in Leicester, and his electric bill has pretty much stayed the same as it was last year. And I was reading on the Leicester website, Leicester has this, and like I said, I don't know what you call it officially, but they have this option that when you can sign up for your own, I guess, carrier or delivery, whoever delivers your electrical, whatever. And maybe Northborough doesn't do that because, like I said, my father's bill has basically been the same as it was last year. It has not gone up.
I know this has come up in some of the conversation in Northborough. People are saying we don't buy into like a bulk. I feel like it's like a bulk order for electricity essentially, and get a reduced rate because of that and a fixed rate because of that. We are not a town that has that as of right now. And I know it's something that people have brought up and said, I think it's time we start looking into how to make this happen.
And I do think that I read on the minutes that John had sent something, John Kadir, to the selectmen about this whole initiative that's going on around the electricity and having different options. So I don't know a lot about it, but I just read something about that.
So in the interest of time, because I did say I'm going to hold to respecting people's time and we're over a little bit already. I think because some of these things are a little later in the year, we're gonna skip my agenda
Yes.
items for this evening.
Yep.
And move to just if anybody else on the board has anything else they wanted to contribute or, ask about or say, before we close the meeting.
I just had an announcement, but if other people had something, let them go first.
I do. I want to go
Good.
over, if you remember last week, I had mentioned that resiliency training.
Yes.
So I did find out some information and
Okay.
so the person that I reached out to, she is a provider at Home Base, which is geared to military families.
Mhm.
However, this training that she received was through Mass General Hospital. So I'm going to read my notes because it's easier. So what they're doing now is it's a 6-week virtual course, and it's grades 1 through 4, 5 through 8, and 9 through 12. And it's age appropriate, but basically what they'll do is, they identify stressors, and then they will go into, various relaxing themes, problem solving. There's always an activity that they will do. So the kids get to actually use what they have done. The kids will also get, and I don't think the high schoolers do, but they'll get like a package in the mail that will contain like a stress ball or just little, sayings, like various resources that can help them. A timer, like one of those hourglass timers,
Mhm.
help them breathe and different like that. So they have the sessions, each is broken down. Like I said, they'll do like a session on stressors, relaxation techniques, mindfulness. And then after each session, an email is sent out where it goes over, what they went over and an agenda for what's coming up so they can prepare for that. And the last one is they just kind of put it all together, and they'll do whether it's a skit or various exercises, again, just to role playing, different role playing activities. The provider that I talked to, her name is Stacy. She says they've gotten wonderful results from it. So that program is actually offshoot of, and I want to give the right name of it. Hang on. This other email that I have, hang on. Hang on, sorry.
That's okay.
The positivity and relaxing training, which is, it's a program it's a copyrighted program, and it's through Mass General Hospital as well. So Child Resiliency Program, Benson Henry Institute, which from the Benson Henry Institute, it's the Mind Body Institute. So I have all the resources for the positivity training. I'm looking into it to get myself certified to be able to teach. I don't know if I'm doing it through, I want to do it through my employer. So I need to, make sure that is all set, but I do have the info. I'm waiting for a return call, and I can go ahead and forward the group all the information on the resiliency, that whole training through Mass General. They did say that it's broken into many different sections, and they said you can pay as you go, because the total cost is about $5,000
Per student?
per person.
Wow.
That's like a train the trainer
That's not
okay.
per student.
per student. Yes.
Okay.
Wait, so I just
So-
want to be clear. For kids, they feel that No, that's for like, if you're gonna get trained, it's $5,000.
Yes.
Do you
Yes.
know what the cost is? I'm just curious, per student?
No, but I will find out because military families get it at no cost.
Okay.
Mm, that's great. Great information. Thank you for
So-
sharing that.
Once I get in touch with the person that sent me the email, I will ask all of those questions to figure out exactly how much it is per student or per group. Because,
Mhm.
you know, if they could offer like a group rate and we had 10 or, 20, we'd go from there.
I would love, I can't afford to get trained. This is
Well,
something I'm
that's
so
why-
interested in, but if you need like I know if I do a program at Trinity that I am trained for, you always need a secondary adult that doesn't necessarily have to be through the training, but acts as like a secondary adult. I'd be so interested, Erica,
Yeah,
if you're in town doing this. And I feel like this is such an amazing program that if we find out pricing and Be Well continues for another year,
well, that was it.
or it could be offered at Trinity for a per student base with scholarship ability for families who can't afford the per
Mhm.
student. I
That's
would
it.
be so interested in either of those options, and I'm sure Trinity would let me host it there if it didn't get approved by Be Well.
Absolutely. And that's why I want to talk to the person because maybe there's a discounted rate for a nonprofit
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
something like that. I'm going to float it by my my nonprofit and see if that's something to consider for me.
Mhm.
So I'll keep you posted. When we finish, I will go ahead and send all the attachments that she sent to me. So,
Thank you so much for bringing that to our
Oh.
attention, and maybe we can get some grants that will help
Yeah.
support.
Yeah.
Yeah. that's
It
great.
sounds a lot like the self program that I was raving about that they're doing for sixth graders at the middle school now,
yes.
that I love, and I wish my other kids had been through it.
Me too.
Unfortunately, we have one grade in town and they're the only grade that's getting it right now. And I feel like it's something you need to offer every so many years to refresh and to grow with age, like this does be age appropriate for where they're at. But it sounds amazing. With that, I will say I just scheduled today. I'm going to be offering at Trinity again, the youth mental health first aid for families in town,
Oh,
for
good.
adults in town on May 20th. So May
Oh,
20th
good.
at 9 a.m. I just got that in the calendar, but Trinity will be hosting that program for parents again.
That's great. So I'm sad to say that Sandy Scott, who's been with us, Sandy, it's been at least a decade, hasn't
Yeah, at least.
it?
Yeah.
Her term is up for renewal in April, and she's decided that she's going to be leaving us. I want to thank her for all her support. She's been steady and consistent and has really made a huge difference for me in my role.
Thank you, Sandy. Well,
Yes.
miss
Appreciate
her.
that. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to get to know all of you and to work with you. It's just the right time for me to do a little something different.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Okay. And would anybody else like to add anything before we close out tonight?
This was a great meeting. It's very helpful. It really is.
All right. Does somebody want a motion?
I'll make a motion to close the meeting.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Sandy, thank you again. Will you be joining us for the next meeting?
I will
Sandy?
be here through March, so I'll
Okay.
be here for the next